Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
Today we're going to talk about the contributing factors in alcoholism in modern Ireland. And I'm going to read out the factors and then we're going to go through each one of them. So number one, the no smoking ban created its own problems. Number two, cheap off-licence booze. Number three, the driving laws are creating alcoholism in their own way. 4, the revenue commissioners are creating alcoholism indirectly. And 5, pub overheads. Pubs are going out of business. So let's start at number one, the no smoking ban.
Yes, the no smoking ban was brought in by an ex-teacher, Micheál Martin, the leader now of Fianna Fáil and about the worst leader they ever had. He brought it in when he was Minister for Health, and kind of a one that got support, as it were, of the media and I suppose the health crowd, because smoking was considered bad for your health. The trouble is, it's bad for your health if you overdo it. If you overdo anything, it's bad for your health. But by banning smoking everywhere, in public places and in pubs and all the rest of it, and while they don't enforce the law in other respects, be goodness they enforced it on that. And publican could be fined if there was anybody caught smoking, and even closed. So that was a draconian measure they brought in. But of course, a person like this Micheál Martin, that's the type of thing he brought in. Of course, he's also brought in the HSE, which is not fit for purpose as well. So he's a lot of items that he brought in and made law to the detriment of the health of the people.
Well, with this no smoking ban, what actually happened was that people started drinking at home and got used to the idea of going to the off-licence where they can actually smoke at home, so they started staying at home drinking.
Well, you see, that was one aspect, but don't forget what contributed to that was the business of the enforcement of this business of no drink at all when you're driving.
Yeah, we're going to come to that, but
yeah.
So number two, the off-licence is very, very cheap. Okay.
Yes.
I mean that's a contributing factor very much to alcoholism. And if you can buy alcohol, if you can buy a can of beer for €1.
Well, you see, because of the business of the pubs, which were a social place in my time, you went there for a chat. You didn't go there to get sloshed, because the publican would know you, and people would know you where you were, and so you went and for a chat and that. Even when I was young, I'd be talking to older folk, because we didn't have this business of older folk or a different breed. We were there to sort of learn, because older folk know things. Mm-hmm. And when you're young, that's the way you find out. So they were a social player. You might have a couple of drinks and maybe a smoke as well, because people smoked. And so there was a social aspect to it. And it was the publican provided a social out for people that was living in kind of rural communities or living in small towns, and it was a way of getting together in a kind of a social mix. Because don't forget, pubs were actually originally just houses, and they got a licence, so they expanded. Mm-hmm. So they provided a very important social mix. What
is the solution to cheap off-licence booze?
Well, obviously, supermarkets that have off licenses and that sell stuff, they're making a profit, but they're able to sell below much cheaper than what you could pay for in a pub. So that's another factor that would have affected pubs, because we weren't saddled with all these supermarkets and outlets off licenses years ago. Pubs, if you wanted a Jameson or something like that to take away for your parents that might wanted something to just before they went to bed, they might wanted a hot whiskey or something. So you got it in the pub. And he didn't overdo the charge at the time, if I remember rightly. You paid a bit less for it because you weren't drinking in the pub. So that's the way it was. There wasn't this plethora of off licenses that we have now. Don't forget the government, successive governments have allowed the mushrooming of these supermarket multiples, and of course they're in it for profit, they're not in it for the good of the people. So they'll flog wherever they can if enough people buy it, and they are buying down in these supermarkets and off licenses, and people are drinking at home without any supervision.
Well, and there's no one to call time on a meter. Would you raise the tax on the off license?
By the way, they're interfering with family life. Go ahead.
Okay. Would you raise the tax on the off license and lower it in the pubs?
Well, you see, this country is taxed to goddamn hilt as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not in favour of raising taxes myself.
But to balance things between the pub and the off license.
The pub, because of the overheads that a pub has, by way of what they have, the insurance and this, that, and the other that they fork out before they make a shilling, if they have a pub with any music or anything. So there's a lot of expense on a pub before they actually make a shilling. Not like an off licence that just has the stock to consider. They don't have the problems that pubs have.
Just to give people an idea, right? A country pub will cost between 800 to 1,000 euros now. That's before you get a wage out of it. That's the overheads. Per week.
Per week. Well, then it must be impossible to make a living because you just don't have the customers now because people are drinking at home because of the drinking laws and all the rest of it. So I don't know how pubs can, even those that are open, can stay open because they have to fork out a lot of money before they actually are able to make a profit themselves. So the fact that they make profit on beer and spirits doesn't mean that they haven't got other expenses. They have severe expenses.
They do.
And it should be taken into account.
Drink driving laws as number 3 are creating alcoholism.
Well, they are because a person now is nearly afraid to go to a pub. You have to nominate a person that doesn't take a drink. I was at a wedding there last Saturday and there was ones that weren't drinking because they were going to be driving their spouses home and that. And it was a very well attended affair. There was nearly 300 people at it. It was a huge wedding, one of the biggest, and a very enjoyable affair. But that was the situation. Anybody driving can't drink because it's the very time that they'll be out. You won't see them, but they'll be out just to get a summons. And it's as if they're doing something.
Very good, John. That's actually quite funny. It's a good point, though. It's a valid point. Okay.
But it is, because my father-in-law in Mersham had to do a lot more than what these buckos have to do.
That's right.
These prison guards. He had to be out night duty when he was stationed in Dublin, in College Street it was called, Pierce Street now I think it's called. And he had to do night duty in the winter time, November and February, from 10 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. You might have got about an hour for that, go and have something to eat in the station.
Yeah.
And he'd be checked on. And he had to check all the business premises, make sure there was no intruders. He knew what was going on, and so did everybody other guard.
So, do you think maybe the drink driving laws are a bit draconian?
Well, of course they are. You know, it's the ones in they're not going to be the ones in the houses that's drinking. They're not going to be going out and driving. But we do know that there's a lot of discos and different knows what where there's drinking, God knows what else involved. I don't notice them checking too many of them. They're normally checking kind of the ordinary Joe Soap that's just out for a social drink, for to have a pint or two in the pub and a bit of a chat. But now you go into a pub and you might be in it on your own, because nobody is going.
Number 4. Most people will be surprised with this one because they've probably never heard it mentioned before. The revenue commissioners are creating alcoholism indirectly. And of course they are by what the revenue commissioners done a couple of years back was they introduced a law where you couldn't actually have a license for a pub unless you had tax clearance. So that closed down a whole pile of pubs in Ireland. People don't talk about it because the publicans themselves are a little bit embarrassed that they couldn't pay their taxes. And the reason they couldn't pay their taxes is related to the overheads and all the expenses that they have.
That's correct, and also the low turnover, because the pub has been attacked by the state relentlessly, as if they're trying to do away with the village and the local pub and supplant it with God knows what. People have a social need, and a pub in olden times that's where it was realised, and it wasn't a non-night affair. It was just there for a bit of a chat. Now, by the methods that they've adopted and the overheads that the poor unfortunate publican is faced with, and the lack of his turnover, and then the revenue commissioners down them like a ton of bricks, and probably it's all sort of health regulations and inspectors calling in to make sure he has a tap here and a tap there and God knows what. I mean, common sense should rule. I mean, I've been in France and Spain, and by goodness, a lot of those places, they call them bistros and different, they wouldn't get permission here to operate because they have damn all facilities compared to what they have to have here.
Now, the alcohol bill was published there a while back, or I think it's going through the Dáil or something at the moment, as well, and it'll be enacted, I think, within the next month or two. I think that's what they're doing. Leo Varadkar is a Taoiseach. He's a doctor, but I haven't seen anywhere in the bill where he's actually said that if you do go to an off licence and you buy 12 beers or 6 beers or 24, that you're given a leaflet on the damage that alcohol does. I think an off licence should be compelled to give out a leaflet with beer to show the effects of particular lack of the B vitamins. Okay, a friend of mine has brain damage from alcohol because of the lack of vitamin B1. It created what's called it's wet brain. Another form of that, which is not related to alcoholism, is beriberi. Okay. Also, I was speaking to a doctor, and he said that most of the patients in St. Brendan's Mental Hospital were former alcoholics and they got brain damage. But Leo Varadkar never mentioned, even though he's a doctor, he has never mentioned that when he's talking about the alcohol bill. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's indefensible. I mean, is this the sort of medical attention that we're liable to get, that we're not told the reality of the situation facing people that overindulge in drink? Because oftentimes they don't eat properly also. And we know from going around and observing that people now, I see them, they don't seem to buy anything in the supermarket except 24 cans of beer and God knows what else. And I believe a lot of the people from East Europe that's here, they don't drink in pubs, they drink at home. So maybe they don't even understand English. So probably these leaflets will want to be in several languages, considering we have all these ones in the country from God knows where, and they're probably drinking at home.
Well, we could start with the native language, Irish. How far would we get with that?
I think they're doing away with Irish now because they're doing away with everything else.
Well, my friend is very active bringing back the Irish language.
But I agree with you there, because
he's doing great work.
All, if you're Irish, goodness, at least you should know your language or know something about it and appreciate it and not denigrate it. Too many denigrate it. I tried to speak to a couple of folk, and funny enough, when I was in Connemara years ago, I was able to communicate with them in Irish. So the fact that I was taught in the national school and secondary school was no harm. So we knew Irish, and we were able to converse, and still able to converse. Now, but aside from that, it's just, if you like all the sort of efforts to try and bring common sense into the business of the alcohol in this country. I mean, for goodness sake, give the publicans a chance to try and make a living. They provided a good service down the years, and stop hounding them morning, noon and night and tackling them to the hilt.
Thank you very much, John.
You're welcome.